On today's show, the fat guy behind me is going to do all the work. I'm just going to supervise. Stay tuned.
Hey, welcome to The First Layer. My name is Richard Cleveland. This is the show that explores the world of 3D printing. If you're new here, I'd love to see you go and hit that subscribe button and also hit that little bell so you get notified every time that we do a brand new episode. Now, this is part 2 of our extreme upgrade on the Ender 3. Now, everything that went into this came to roughly around $130 in terms of parts and things that we used. We used the MKS Gen L motherboard. We used 3 TMC 2208 stepper drivers. Now those are trinamic drivers, so they are going to make this machine quite quiet. We also used the LV 8729. I hope I got that right on the extruder, so that it works out really well. We set this to 1/16 steps, and things seem to be going okay. What we have to do now is we've got the LCD hooked up, which is a touch screen, so we no longer have a dial. But what we have to do now is we have to upload the firmware. So we're going to dive into firmware. Stick with me as we get over to the computer and we get that started for you. All right, so we're over here at the computer right now, and we're going to have a look at what we need to do the software upgrade on this particular printer. Now, first we want to go to the Arduino website, which is www.arduino.cc. We're going to go under Software and go to the Downloads tab. Now, if you're on Windows, you'll want the Windows installer. If you're on Mac OS or Linux, you'll just pick the one that you need. In our case, we're going to pick the Windows installer. I've already got it installed, so I don't need to install it again. But this is the Arduino 1.8.8. So let's, I've got an older version installed, so we're just going to download it. Now, if you want to support them, of course you can by going ahead and putting in one of the contributes. We're going to put this in my downloads folder. Let's actually put it on the desktop. Let's do that. Okay, save that to the desktop. That is now done. Let's go over to the Marlin firmware website, and that's at www.marlinfw.org. You can see all of these links down in the description below as well. They'll be down there. When we get to this page, there's several things that we can do, but first and foremost, we just want to go to the download page, and you'll see the latest release. Now, this is the latest release that has all the bugs fixed, and it's the most stable. So that's the one you should grab. You'll go over, you can see here it's version 1.1.9. You'll go over to the 1.1.x.zip file. You'll just click that and it will start the download for that as well. We'll get both of these downloaded, we'll install them, and then we'll be right back. All right, so we've gone ahead and installed Arduino 1.8.8. Now we've also gone ahead and we've unzipped the Marlin firmware. So now we have a folder here on our desktop. We're just going to double click that to open it up. You'll see inside there's a file that says Marlin-1.1.x. We're going to double click that again, and you're going to see that we've got a Marlin folder here. We're going to double click that as well. Now, before we get started, normally what you would do is you just double click the Marlin and start building out your firmware. We're going to essentially cheat. We're going to open up the example configurations file. We're going to go down and find Creality. And in this case, we need the Ender 3. And there are 4 files in here that we need. So we're going to hit the first one. We're going to hold down our Shift key and hit the last one. And then we are just going to copy these. Now, if you wanted to read the README, you certainly could. So we'll just right click on it. In our case, we're just going to edit it with Notepad. We'll just look at it here on Notepad. And basically what it says is it's this branch is a reserve engineered version based on the unpublished firmware from Creality. So it is not the authoritative source, but has been carefully rebuilt by looking at their firmware and interfering with base version and configuration they used. Okay, the basis is the firmware version from July 31st, 2017. So it's based on an older version, the original Ender 3, which was Marlin version 1.0.1, which is quite far back. So now we're just going to go ahead. It has a bitmap in it. There's a boot screen. We're not going to worry too much about that. We'll just close that out. So we've copied those 4 files. Now we're just going to back out to our main directory, which is right here under the Marlin tab. We're going to right click again, and we are just going to paste. Do not paste a shortcut, just use the paste command. And then it'll ask you in the dialog box, replace the files in this destination. For us, yes. So now you can see there are 4 highlighted files. These are all configuration H files. Now those files are now available to us within Marlin, so we don't have to do a lot. So we're going to go down to our Marlin INO file, which is this one here that looks like a little Arduino symbol beside it. And double click that. We'll get into Arduino, and we'll show you exactly what we're doing. Okay, so now we're in the Arduino file. What we need to do is go to the Configuration H tab, and we're going to just start scrolling down here. You can see I've got the numbers turned on. How you want to do that is you'll go up to, try to remember exactly where it is. Right here under File, you'll go to Preferences, and inside there, you'll see at the very top of the checkbox section, display line numbers. Just check that off, and then you'll be able to follow along much easier. So we'll just click OK. We're going to scroll down a bit here. Where are we going? We're going to just make sure that our serial port is set to 0. Now remember, we are using a touch screen with this one, so we are going to have to change this baud rate, or we change the baud rate on the touch screen. I think for now, in order to get it going, we are just going to leave it as the 115200, and we will move on from there. We'll show you how to do that. Now, here's where we're going to run into trouble. Because the board in the Ender 3 is a Melzi board, or Sanguino board, we want to change that, because now we're using a brand new board. So we're going to highlight that. We're going to go over here to where this little arrow is. We'll just click it, and we're going to go down and we're going to find our boards, which is a couple scrolls down. Once you find the boards.h file, it will open it up. And what you're going to do is you're going to have to go through this and find the board in which you are using. In this case, we are using the MKS Gen L board. And if we look down in here under ramps derivatives, we will find the board in line number 65, board MKS Gen L. So this has everything that we need, so we're just going to highlight this. We're going to go copy, we're going to go back to our configuration H file, and right where we highlighted before, we're just going to right click now, and we're just going to paste that in there. That's all we have to do. So now we have the right motherboard. So if we go up to our tools, we know that we have an Arduino Genuine Mega 2560. This is all set. We're going to make sure we have our port set correctly. Right now it's on COM1. So that now is done. Just double check and make sure that our default filament is set to 1.75. If you are using a 2.85 millimeter nozzle, then you're going to go ahead and change that to 2.85. So let's mosey on down to the next part that is very important to us, is the power supply. Now the power supply is set to 0, and if you look here, you can see the different options. 0 says no power switch. 1 is an ATX, and 2 is an Xbox 360 power supply. We are just going to leave it set to 0. That's fine. Thermal settings, we want to make sure that our line 306 temperature sensor -0 is set to 1. And we also want to make sure at line 311 that it's defined as temp sensor bed and 1, because they both use the same thermistor. So we don't have to touch anything here. If we are using the all metal hot end from Micro Swiss, this is where we would make this change. In this case, we are using an all metal hot end, so we are going to change this to 300. And we are going to bring our bed down to 110, because normally we're not going to do anything over 110. Now we're not going to worry about PID tuning in this video. That's something for a more advanced video later on down the line. Thermal runaway. Starting on line 463, you want to make sure that line 480 and line 481 are both unchecked. So you want to make sure that they don't have these two little slashes in front of them. You want to make sure that they are enabled. I know that was kind of confusing, but we don't have to change anything in here as far as our steppers go. In this case, where our stepper drivers are, you'll notice that we did do a change on the stepper drivers. So we're going to take out that one, that one. We want to make sure that these three are defined, as well as our E0 is defined. So we're just going to delete the slashes in front of them. Now, in this case, we are using the 2208 steppers, which is this one right here. It's called a standalone. So we are going to take this, we're going to copy it. We're not going to cut it. We're just going to copy it. And we are going to replace that one. We're going to replace this one. And we are going to replace this one. Okay, now under our E extruder, or our extruder 0, the driver type is not an A4988. In this case, we are using the LV8729. So we are going to copy that, and we are going to change that one by pasting in that information. So now that our steppers are set up, we're good to go. Now we're just going to scroll through here and just get a feel for some of the things that are going on. We're still using the same extruder. We haven't changed our extruder, so we don't have to change this number just now. We'll leave our feed rates where they are. What we are going to change is our default X and Y jerk settings. So we've got line 645. We're just going to change this to 5.0. We're going to lower that amount of jerk. Do that on the second line as well. And just to keep things tidy, I just like to push these over just a little bit. And now we will move down here, and we don't have to worry about anything here as far as our probes go. But because we have a BL Touch, we are going to have to define BL Touch. And that is on line 727. So we'll just continue down here. We do have to adjust our offset. For the setup that we're using, which is the Pet's Fang, it is -41 and -10. On lines 776 and 777, that's where our probe sits, and that's where it'll start to give us the proper amount of probing. So our clearance we don't have to worry about. Where are we here? We're going to leave all of that the same. What we do want to enable is safe homing, but we are going to check out what bed leveling we're going to use. We're going to use bilinear. So we'll just delete that on line 975. We'll just delete the two slashes in front of it. And we'll just keep going down till we get to our section on homing. Now, use Z-Safe homing down here on 1132. This tells you a little bit about it. And on 1141, to get that Z-Safe homing, we're just going to delete those two slashes in front of it. And then we are going to continue on. We don't have to change any of this. Our features here we can leave just the same, and just keep going down. We do want SD card support, however, which we will find a little bit further down the line here. There's our LCD SD card support. It is defined, and we want to keep it defined. So that is pretty much all you need to do. Now, this is being set up currently for the stock LCD screen. Now, as you remember, we did put in a MKS touchscreen. We're going to have to show you that in just a little bit. Let's first of all make sure that we've got no errors. We're going to verify this, and we'll see if we've got any errors. And there we are. We've compiled successfully, and we can see in the sketch that 55% of the program storage space is being used and 60% of the dynamic memory is being used. We have no errors, so now we can go ahead and just upload this to our 3D printer and make sure that it starts to function properly. So go ahead, upload that by connecting your USB cable to your printer and to your computer. Select the proper COM port underneath your port section, and then go ahead and upload that, and we'll get on to the next part. All right, so for the touchscreen, we've had to go ahead and download the MKS TFT master file from GitHub. I will leave a description or a link to it down below in the description. Michael from Teaching Tech has also done a really thorough video on this, so I'm going to basically just touch upon it. We won't do a whole lot. We'll go ahead and go into the MKS TFT 2.8 3.2 because we're using a 3.2 monitor. And you can see there's a history revision, and then there is a RAR file right here. So we are going to unzip that file. All right, so we've got our file opened up. It's the MKS config en.txt file. This is the file where we're going to make our changes. Like I said before, Michail from Teaching Tech has done a great video on this, so I don't want to repeat it. I'm just going to gloss over it really quickly. You can see here the main board firmware settings is set to Marlin, which is type 1, which is what we want. We're going to leave our machine at normal. It's not a delta. The baud rate, however, you can see here it's 2500. In our case, we are going to change it to number 3. So that's what we want, is we're going to change that to 3 because our board is the same baud rate. If the baud rates between the board and the TFT display are different, the TFT will not operate the board. They have to both be on the same baud rate. And we're not going to add anything at this moment, so we'll just go ahead and save this. And we are all done with that file. So here we go. It's all done. We've got all of the parts that we need. We still have to put on our PET's fang, but that's not a big deal. It's just replacing the
because I did one. I really haven't stopped the entire time.
Yeah, I've noticed that. It's the green gaseous cloud that's going.
Don't light a match, it might explode.
Do not turn the power on. All right, 3, 2, 1. So there you have it. All we got left to do now is just add the PETS fang to it, and that's not a big deal. There's a million videos on how to put a PETS fang on. So we're not going to go too much into that. This is an ABS. This is PLA, so we want to make sure that we've got the right material around the hot end. And then this thing is ready to go back to the client. So you saw how to do the install of the board. We talked about the trinamic drivers. We got everything connected back to the board properly. And now all we have to do is send it back to the client, and the client can now get back to 3D printing. So with that said, I want to thank my staff. Jess is in the house today. There she is. And I also want to thank Spool 3D for all of the help that they give us, and this beautiful studio which we are able to use every week to bring you the show. Don't forget, on Saturday night at 7 p.m. we are doing our live stream. This is the TFL Call for Help. I almost forgot the acronym there. TFL Call for Help. Join Brian Baker and myself as we answer your questions about 3D printing, about your printer, any other things that may be going on with your software and things like that. So join us at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for TFL Call for Help, live every Saturday night at 7 p.m. With that said, my friends, I'm going to get out of here for another day, and we will see you next time. Remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and hit that little bell notification so you get notified every time we do a brand new episode. Till next time.